James Donovan had spent most of his life in boardrooms. He wore tailored suits, traveled first class, and lived in a glass tower of charts, projections, and profit margins. But no spreadsheet had ever made him feel the way he did that day standing in a cheap polyester uniform, pretending to be a trainee, and watching a young woman quietly wipe away tears beside the soda machine. He had decided to go undercover after months of feeling disconnected from the company he had built. The chain of fast casual restaurants had expanded rapidly in the past 3 years. New franchises opened every month, profits were soaring, and customer satisfaction ratings were stable. But there was a strange coldness in the quarterly reports. The turnover rate had increased. Absenteeism was up. His HR department told him it was just post-pandemic labor volatility. But something didn't sit right. That's why he was here. Hidden under a fake beard, going by Mike, trying to learn the truth from the inside. The store manager had welcomed him casually that morning. "Stick close to Alyssa," she said. "She'll show you around. She's been with us the longest." Alyssa had smiled politely. Her voice was calm and gentle, and she didn't complain once through the morning. She taught him how to log in at the register, how to fold the bags, where to place condiments. She even helped him mop up a spilled soda when he fumbled the mop bucket. She moved like someone who had done this 1,000 times. But after the lunch crowd dispersed and the kitchen quieted, James noticed a shift in her demeanor. She stood stiffly near the counter, staring blankly at the floor, her shoulders trembling slightly. At first, he thought she might be cold. Then he realized she was crying silently, desperately, trying not to be noticed. He hesitated. This wasn't part of the plan. He was here to observe, not interfere. But something about the way she held her face fighting to hold everything in tugged at him. "You okay?" he asked quietly, trying to sound like a concerned coworker. She blinked rapidly and turned away. "Yeah, sorry, allergies," she muttered. He didn't believe her, but he didn't push. A few minutes later, she asked the manager if she could step outside for a breather. The manager didn't even look up from her phone. "Yeah, whatever." James followed a few moments later, feigning the need to empty the trash. He found her behind the building, sitting on an overturned milk crate, her apron bunched in her lap. She looked up when she saw him, startled. "Sorry," she said again. "Didn't mean to freak anyone out." "No worries," James said, unsure what to say. "Just wanted to check in. You seemed upset." There was a long pause. She studied him, probably trying to decide if he was trustworthy. Then she exhaled, a long, tired breath. "You ever have one of those days where everything just feels too much?" He nodded. "Yeah, I've had a few." Another pause. Then she spoke, and the words came slowly, at first measured, careful. "I've been working here 3 years. I started when I was 20, right after my mom got sick. I needed to help pay bills. Then she passed last year, and now I'm raising my 2 younger brothers. One's in high school, the other's 9. James didn't speak. He just listened. "I work 6 days a week, sometimes doubles. We're always short-staffed, so I get called in a lot. I can't say no, because we need the money, but it's like ... no one here cares. I asked for a weekend off 2 months ago to go to my little brother's soccer game. The manager laughed and said, 'You're lucky to have a job." She looked down at her shoes, her voice trembling. "Today, I found out we might get evicted. Rent's going up. My brother called me while I was on break, crying. Said he didn't know where we were gonna go. I told him not to worry, but I'm scared." James felt something tighten in his chest. "I try so hard," she continued. "I smile at customers. I cover for people who don't show up. I stay late, mop floors, train new hires. I never complain. But it doesn't matter. The manager tells me I'm slow. HR never calls back. I had a panic attack last week in the freezer, but I just kept going. I don't have a choice." James felt paralyzed. This wasn't just about bad management. This was a human being, quietly breaking under the weight of responsibility, and no one in the system had seen it. No one had cared. "I didn't mean to cry in front of you," she added, softly. "I hate crying at work. It makes you look weak. But today, ... I just broke." He wanted to tell her who he was. He wanted to fix it right there. Promise her things would change. But he couldn't yet. Not until the official reveal. Instead, he nodded and sat beside her on a crate. "Thanks for telling me," he said. She smiled faintly. "You're new. Figured you wouldn't judge me." That comment stung more than she probably realized. Because she was right. No one had listened. No one from the top had come down to ask what was really happening on the ground. They sat in silence for a moment before heading back inside. Later. That night, James returned to his hotel room, pulled off the wig and fake beard, and sat in front of his laptop. He replayed the security footage from the store, watching Alyssa work. She was efficient, kind, tireless, and utterly invisible to the system that depended on her. Asterisk, he looked through her employee file. There were no disciplinary actions, just perfect attendance. A few generic notes from managers: reliable, quiet, hard worker. Asterisk, but not one mention of her personal situation. Not one sign that anyone had checked on her well-being. He felt sick. For years, he had prided himself on building a company that treated people with respect. He had believed that good culture trickled down. But now he saw the truth. Systems don't care. People have to care. Leaders have to care. And no one had cared enough to ask Alyssa if she was okay. Asterisk, he thought about the policies: no mental health support, no emergency relief fund, no guaranteed breaks. These weren't just corporate oversights, they were failures. And they were costing his employees their dignity. Asterisk, he thought about her words again. I just broke. Asterisk, the phrase echoed in his head. And in that moment, James realized something he never could have learned in a boardroom: numbers don't cry, but people do. And when they cry in silence, in supply closets and walk-ins and behind buildings, it's not weakness. It's a scream that no one's hearing. Asterisk, but he had heard it now, and he would never forget it. Alyssa's shift started at 7 a.m., just like every other weekday. She didn't drive, so she caught the first city bus out of the East Side stop. A 45-minute ride that got her to the store just in time to prep before opening. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, and most of the city was still quiet. But Alyssa's day had already begun hours earlier, making breakfast for her two younger brothers, laying out their school clothes, double-checking their homework. Asterisk, she was just 23, but her life didn't resemble that of most people her age. While others posted pictures of college life and parties, Alyssa's phone was full of calendar reminders: rent due, utility cutoff notice, parent-teacher meeting. There hadn't been a moment to slow down in over a year, ever since their mother passed and the world dropped its weight squarely on Alyssa's shoulders. Asterisk, yet, when she walked into the restaurant, she didn't carry that weight visibly. Her coworkers knew her as the dependable one, the one who never called in sick, the one who always stayed late when someone else bailed. To them, she was just Alyssa, the calm, collected cashier who kept the morning running smoothly. Asterisk, she tied her apron, clocked in, and began prepping the register. At exactly 7:58, she opened the front doors. Asterisk, customers trickled in. A few regulars gave her warm smiles. One elderly man greeted her with a nickname he'd given her months ago: Sunshine. She smiled back. No one saw the exhaustion beneath her eyes or noticed the slight limp in her step from standing too long the day before. They just saw her smile. That was enough. Asterisk, when James Donovan known that day, only as Mike walked into the restaurant, wearing a wrinkled polo and asking where to find the manager, Alyssa didn't question him. She offered a polite nod and gestured toward the back. Asterisk, later, when the manager introduced Mike as a new hire in training, she simply said, "Hi, welcome," and handed him an extra apron. Asterisk, she didn't ask why a man his age was just starting out in fast food. She didn't make assumptions or judge. She just did what she always did: helped. Asterisk, throughout the morning, she taught him the flow of the register, how to upsell combo meals without sounding pushy, where the napkin refills were hidden behind the juice cooler, how to gently correct a customer's order without making them feel embarrassed. She didn't brag or show off. She just shared what she knew. Asterisk, when he fumbled a drink order and spilled a cup of soda all over the counter, she rushed to grab a towel before the mess reached the floor. She gave him a reassuring nod and quietly said, "Happens to everyone. You'll get used to it." Asterisk, he noticed that she never raised her voice, never looked frustrated. Even when the breakfast rush hit and the line stretched out the door, Alyssa moved quickly, efficiently. She handled each customer with care, answering questions with practiced patience. Her eyes scanned the room constantly, checking if anyone needed help. When a coworker in the kitchen fell behind, she darted back to assist, assembling sandwiches between transactions. She wasn't the shift leader, but she moved like one. Around 10:30, Mike watched as another employee, Jacob, slid his phone into his pocket and walked up to Alyssa with a sheepish look. "Hey, my ride's here. Think you could cover the rest of my shift?" Asterisk, she didn't even hesitate. "Yeah, go ahead." Asterisk, "Thanks. You're the best." Asterisk, he was gone before the manager even noticed. Alyssa adjusted her schedule in her head. Knowing she'd now be staying until 6 p.m., she didn't complain. She just took a deep breath and kept going. Asterisk, James had seen this kind of behavior described in annual reviews before: team player, self-starter, great under pressure. But on paper, it sounded clinical. Watching it unfold in real life, it was something entirely different. This wasn't corporate jargon. This was a young woman who seemed to be holding the entire store together. Asterisk, he started paying closer attention. Every time a problem popped up, Alyssa was there. She didn't make announcements about it. She didn't ask for recognition. When a customer shouted about a missing side item, she offered a calm apology and handed over a fresh box without fuss. When the ice machine jammed, she grabbed a scoop and brought ice from the back freezer, even though that wasn't technically her station. She moved like someone who believed the place would fall apart if she didn't hold it together, and James was beginning to believe it. 2. During a rare break, she sat at a side table and pulled out her phone. James noticed she wasn't scrolling social media like the others. She was reading what looked like a school newsletter. She scribbled a note on a receipt slip and tucked it into her pocket. Then, without finishing her soda, she got up and went back behind the counter. The manager barely acknowledged her. By 1 p.m., James had started to feel the ache in his legs. His lower back throbbed, and he found himself wishing for the padded office chair back at HQ. Alyssa, however, was still standing tall, joking with a kid who wanted extra ketchup, offering refills to a group of elderly ladies, helping a teen fill out a job application after her shift technically ended. She had become invisible to the people around her. Not in a cruel way, more in the way that dependable people often are. She was the one no one worried about, because she never caused problems, because she always said yes. But beneath that calm surface, James began to see the signs. The slight wince when she crouched to tie a child's shoelace, the way she instinctively checked her cracked phone screen between orders, clearly waiting for a message, the way her hands shook slightly after hours on the register. He asked her once, casually, how long she'd been with the company. 3 years, she said. Started part-time, then went full-time after my mom passed. My brothers needed stability. He asked if she liked it. She smiled. It's work. You make the best of it. James didn't press further, but her eyes gave away more than her words ever did. That evening, after she finally clocked out, she didn't head home right away. Instead, she took out her wallet and pulled out a wrinkled bus pass. James watched as she sat on the bench outside, phone to her ear, whispering instructions to someone on the other end, probably one of her brothers. She looked drained, but still focused. He was struck by something then, not just the effort, but the dignity in it. Alyssa carried so much without asking for help. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't seeking recognition. She simply believed in showing up, doing her part, and making sure others didn't feel the burden she carried alone. And that, James realized, was where the system had failed her. People like Alyssa were the backbone of the company, quiet, steady, irreplaceable. Yet, they were the least heard, the least protected, the least celebrated. She wasn't just a good employee. She was the reason the store functioned, the reason customers returned, the reason the younger, newer staff didn't quit after one chaotic shift. But there was no bonus for that. No mental health support, no backup, just expectation piled on expectation. What made it even more humbling was that she never demanded more. She never asked for favors. She never used her circumstances as a reason to pull back. She simply gave, and she gave more than any job had a right to ask for. As James watched her board the bus that night, he didn't see just a cashier. He saw a leader, quiet, powerful, invisible to the corporate eye, but deeply visible now to him.